So I'm Terry Durham. I've been farming. This is my 40th decade to be an organic farmer, and we grew vegetables for a long time. And we were always interested in elderberries. And around the end of the 90s, we decided to start changing over from annuals to grow perennials. Um, and it was, I think, 1998 that Andy and Patrick got interested in the elderberry and got a little bit of grant money to start the elderberry improvement program. And I had been interested in elderberries from my younger years of picking them for my grandma and helping her make jelly. And my dad taught us how to make pop guns and whistles and stuff out of the pieces of elderberry. So I'd always loved the elderberry, but it had never really been developed as a commercial crop here in the United States. So we work with the Sambucus canadensis, which is the dark purple elderberry that's native from the Continental Divide towards the east. So there's a large population of them. I have found elderberries growing in every state almost that I've gone to. I know every state west or east of the Continental Divide has elderberries, from the southern tip of Florida to all the way up into Canada, it's great, so adaptable. It has that huge genome, so there's many different kinds of elderberries that grow in different areas. So we've been beginning to learn that, and now we have been able to successfully get the canadensis to grow in every state, including Hawaii and Alaska are also able to grow the canadensis. And we're still learning a little bit about the adaptation of the varieties the selections out there and how they grow. And so when we first started planting the elderberries, we were just collecting some from the wild at random that looked good. We didn't really have anything to work with. It was probably about 2002 that Patrick and Andy first started having some resources for us of stuff that was coming out of the trials that were good native ones. We started planting the Wildwood, Bob Gordon, and Ranch at the very beginning, all three together. We always encouraged people to plant a selection because we really didn't know what was going to grow best anywhere. And we started with those three selections, and they did really well for us. We liked it. About 2005, we were able to start having enough berries to begin to make some kind of products. Elderberry is a processing crop. Not very much is used as a fresh fruit, though we know we could do that more. Some of the research is all on elderberry in the past was all from the European type elderberry, and you weren't able to consume it raw like you can the American elderberries easily, so it never really been developed. So we have developed it as a processing crop mostly. So once we were able to get fruit, we had to figure out how to clean it, how to process it. So we had to work with engineers to develop machines that would take the elderberries on the stem and take the berries and destem them so that we have nice clean fruit. So we did that. That really helped improve things. We started being able to bring in some more growers once we had some equipment figured out, and we kind of had an idea of what to start to make with it. We started out just making the juice, and we had came across that idea because the European elderberries had supplied the United States with all of its elderberries for a long time. Pretty much all the processed stuff that came that we were using was from the European elderberries, and we'd seen that they were bringing in concentrate, and it was bringing in quite a bit of money. So we thought that we could compete with that with our American elderberry. We were, Patrick and Andy were selecting for a few different things, or looking for some different things in the elderberries that were very helpful for us. The first one that they were introducing was the Wildwood. We had been growing two varieties of Wildwood The Wildwood 2 is the one that has been released as Wildwood. It's a great plant. It had the tendency to make 3 flowers after it set its primocane head of flowers. It would continue to grow and bloom and make 3 additional heads of flowers, and sometimes it would do that again. So it was a long term, and so slowly, as growers, we figured out it was like most things. There were indeterminate types and there were determinate types. Some that were going to grow and make flowers and set fruit, grow some more, and do that a few different times. So it would be a long harvest. But some of the other ones, like the next one they introduced, which was the Bob Gordon, was the next one they released. It had the tendency to make its fruit all at one time. And there were advantages to us for that, because we could go in there, we could harvest it quicker. We weren't having to go through the field as many times to collect the fruit. We liked that Bob Gordon for that reason. And then the third one that we were working with the Ranch, which is also a determinate type of elderberry, but it was the earliest. So some of the all the different selections have advantages, a few characteristics that we would like to carry through to this new breeding program that Liz is going to be working on. And so with the Wildwood, it's a great indeterminate type. And if you're growing flowers, and a lot of flower producers are starting up in Europe, 50% of their crop is flowers. So we knew that we could work in that could be a great new thing we could sell if we could get enough of them. And then with the Bob Gordon, as well as being determinate, it had very sweet fruit. It had a high Brix, so it was really good for making wine. We learned to do that. And it also would turn its fruit upside down and hang it when it got ripe, so that it was harder for the birds to get on there to eat that fruit. So those are the 3 main ones that we were working with. And then we also always like to keep in there the old standard Adams, which was released in about 1928 from New York. But most of the ones that we're working with now are more of from the central part of the country here, from the Midwest, from Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas. That area is where most of the genetics were coming from for these original ones. And so we have had some more brought on. The next one they brought out, I think, was Marge, which was seedling found that was a European type, but it would grow here, which was unusual because most of the European elderberries, the Niagara that we had tried to grow here in the Midwest, didn't persist very long. After a few years, they always seemed to get diseased and would die, something in our soil or something that was causing them to fail. So the Marge was the first one of the European type that would grow here, and they released that early on also. The other thing that we were looking at in the beginning was the how to prune it properly. The European type, the Niagara, only blooms and fruits on 2-year-old wood and older, whereas the American elderberry that we are working with, it will bloom on 1-year-old wood. So we had that advantage of being able to prune those plants to the ground every year. And some of the early research they were working with was showing us that the heads of the fruit would be twice as big on our primocanes. So we have developed a system of trying to grow mostly primocanes have the bigger heads, so that we get a bigger harvest and fewer times over the field. Because when you cut them off, it synchronizes the growth so that it blooms at the same time, and then it gets its fruit at the same time, so that we can get in there and in 1 week with 2 harvests, get all of the fruit off. I've also introduced, they had Ozark. Ozark has been really hard for our growers. We don't have hardly any orchards planted with that right now that we know of. There are a few, but it doesn't seem to be as healthy as we'd like. It does have lots of antioxidant, which is one of the things that we're looking for in elderberries. We want that high medicinal values that they can have. It was really strong in that, but it was a little weak for starting. And since we teach our farmers to start a little nursery of your own with the different varieties, see which ones are going to grow best in your climate and soil, and then you could propagate from that nursery to grow more plants. And so that's kind of the way that we've been working. We have been doing yearly conferences to train farmers. We have developed the equipment to do the processing. We continue to create new products from the elderberry, and it's growing fast. I think that they are underestimating how many acres are planted out there. We work with growers, and we know that there's a lot coming on out there. So it's a growing industry. We've been able to do it mostly with the research it's been happening mostly in Missouri, but now it's expanding out to being more of a regional thing, and we're doing the trials north to south, so we'll be able to have a better idea of what to plant where.